From just a Butlerite's perspective, there aren't a crazy amount of local businesses from local people, but you certainly chose Main Street, downtown Butler for your first restaurant. What was the process like to get there?
It made sense. It was just mostly common sense. I wanted to be in Butler. Growing up, you constantly hear, and it doesn't matter the generation, it doesn't matter where you grow up. There's nothing to do here. It's consistent anywhere you go. But for us, our Main Street was becoming pretty depressed when I was a little kid. It was already in a major downturn, but there were still some neat things. The parades always drew people. Mm-hmm. People would be lined up 3 and 4 people deep on the sidewalk to see the parades. Yeah. And then when we were there, you'd always stop at Allen's toy store and walk through and look at all the old toys and stuff that they had in there. And used to eat at the hot dog shop.
Right.
So in my time, even though downtown was already depressed, I watched all of those things leave, Mm-hmm. So it made downtown a pretty sad place. And again, it goes back to my budget, what I had to spend. Main Street made sense financially because nothing had been opened on Main Street in a long time whenever I started looking for the shop. And then I happened to luck into the building that the shop is in going up for sale a few months into my search for a place. It had already housed a restaurant, so I didn't have to go through Harrisburg to have the use of the building changed, which is, if anybody's ever done that, it's ridiculous to have to change.
Just red tape.
Yeah, because restaurants have such different building codes.
Okay,
like
that makes
for
sense.
The health codes and things like that, than a retail space does. So if you're trying to go from retail to food service, there's a ton of expenses involved in having it drawn, sent to Harrisburg, redrawn, sent to Harrisburg before you ever even touch a piece of equipment or a can of paint. So it was the right building at the right time. Having already had a restaurant, it had the major components that I needed, even though they didn't necessarily work right. It had a hood system. It had a fire suppression system. It had a walk-in cooler, a walk-in freezer. That was really all I needed. Everything else I could fix. So it just happened to come up for sale. Somebody knew I was looking for a building and also knew that the owners were closing their business and going to be selling. So I got a heads up on it before it got listed. Called my real estate agent and said, "Hey, I heard this is coming up for sale. I'd like to go look at it. Can you find out when?" So she did. She found out the day it was supposed to be listed, already made us an appointment the day that it was listed, went in, looked at it, and I think I made an offer on it the next day, and then it was accepted like 2 or 3 days later.
Wow.
So the building was listed for a day before it really got sold.
Right.
So I lucked into that one, and the process of getting it open was not nearly as bad as I anticipated. Because at that time, like I said, there wasn't much that opened in Butler at the time, and there definitely weren't any new restaurants looking to come in. So, again, being naive, I had no idea where you're going to start other than we need to rip out what we don't need and then start fixing it. So get a big dumpster, dropped off behind the shop, and we just gutting the first floor, and we got it all gutted, and then I was like, okay, now I need some building permits, I think. So I went down to the city building and met John Evans and said, "Here's what I'm doing." And I said, he's like, "Well, who's going to be your contractor?" I said, "Well, my dad and I." He's like, "All right. So do you have a drawing?" And I'm like, "Nope." I said, "Do I need one?" And he's just like, oh.
Yeah, right.
So he was a big help. He
Yeah.
kind of directed me where I needed to go and made sure that I wasn't being wasteful, with resources and things. Like I didn't have to like just guess it. Who should I go talk to get this done, this done? He kind of would give me a list of people that he was familiar with working in the city and say, here's a list of people, try calling them.
Right.
And so that helped a lot.
Yeah.
We had that first floor completely gutted and put back together to what you see at the chop shop pretty much now in about 4 months.
Wow. Yeah.
With just
That's amazing.
My dad and I and some of my friends. None of us were contractors.
Sure.
We just go in, and I would kind of look at the space and be like, this is kind of what we need to have happen here. And then we would find pieces and parts and build it and make it happen.
That's sweet. You were around the time that you opened, it seemed like you were kind of on the forefront of the new life that's been brought into downtown. So it seems like a lot of businesses, whether they were just planning to open, it seemed like they followed you, whether you had, an impact on them or not. Are you in conversations with local business owners to try to help bring new life into Butler? Are you guys kind of working together to try to make this happen?
Somewhat. We were definitely one of, if not the first thing that really kind of opened, that started drawing attention on Main Street in many years.
When I remember when you guys opened, dude, there was a buzz came around pretty quickly.
Yeah, we did everything wrong that you probably could do wrong to really get the place open and promoted. I ran out of money. I didn't have a sign on the front of the building. We didn't have a sign for like 2 years.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, we had a A-frame marker board that I built out of parts in the basement and stuck it on the sidewalk that said open. Yeah. Like with an arrow. That was it. Like, stuff like that. But we have seen a lot of things come around after. I think Reclamation, opened 2 years after we opened. The boys at Butler Brew Works had bought their building almost a year to the day that we bought ours and started work on trying to get that open. And I'd had conversations with both of those groups of guys about like my experience getting open, and if they needed anything, that come see me. And John and Ben would come over and ask me about kitchen layout sometimes, and what would they do with this or that. And at Butler Brew Works, like they got everything handled on their own pretty much, but I still ended up over there. I help them out now.
That's right.
Talked with Spencer a lot at Max Brick Oven Pizza, with him getting open, and just where he wanted to go with his menu and stuff. He was so excited, and because he eats at the shop a lot too. He always had. So when he got that spot and he was going to open, he was like, I'm going to put in a brick-fired pizza. He's like, I'm working on the menu, but whenever it's done, I'm going to bring it over and you tell me what you think. I'm like, okay. Like, yeah, right. Like he's got a lot of good skill too. Another guy that went to culinary school. He's traveled. Sure. He's eaten a bunch of different countries all over the world. Like, he probably has I know he has a more well-traveled, palate than I do, but just because I was there first, he wanted to tell me what he was going to do and wanted to see what I had to say, just because I was there first and I survived. So my opinion mattered to him,